Karen Whitfield tore the boarding pass in one swift, ruthless motion, right in front of Maya Lawson. The shredded paper fell to the floor like a verdict. The passengers around them froze in a suffocating silence. "You do not belong here," Karen said, each word low and metallic. It was the moment everything shifted, the first domino falling, triggering a chain of events Karen could never have imagined. She had humiliated the wrong woman. The first-class cabin of Luminaire went still, as if frozen. The cold white cabin lights fell across Maya's face, pale from exhaustion, but her eyes remained bright, steady, unnervingly calm. Her hand rested on her belly, 6 months pregnant, a quiet instinct of protection. But no one in that cabin saw the exhaustion, the urgency, the fear gripping her chest, because her father was in an intensive care unit in London, waiting for the only daughter he might not live long enough to see. They saw only a black woman, her boarding pass, torn, publicly shamed. And Karen, she saw only a problem, not a person. A faint vibration rippled through the floor as more passengers boarded. Seat 1A, the private suite, remained open. Maya only wanted to breathe, and silence the anxiety clawing at her heart. But Karen stood, blocking the way, her eyes cold as stone. "Stop right there. You are disrupting my boarding process." That word process, empty and mechanical, but in Karen's mouth it became a weapon, a shield hiding prejudice, pressed into a perfectly ironed uniform. Maya lifted her head, her voice soft but clear. "I have a first-class ticket." "Seat 1A. Karen smirked. People think that all the time. No one said it aloud, but the air carried a familiar weight, the way people always looked at Maya when she stepped into a space too elegant, too pristine, too not meant for someone like you. She had lived under those stares her whole life. But today, she didn't know things would be different. Not because she was stronger, but because the man standing behind her was powerful enough to shake an entire industry. Maya finally held out her phone. "Here. E-ticket. Confirmation code." Karen glanced at the screen, her cold eyes scanning it, lingering longer than necessary. But instead of apologizing, she said loudly enough for the entire cabin to hear, "Let me ask you honestly, are you sure you purchased the right type of ticket? Some people get confused." Time seemed to shudder. A silver-haired man in seat 2C turned his head. A young student in seat 2A stopped pulling her suitcase. That student, Liam Brooks, lifted his hand and casually touched his phone. No one knew he had opened the camera. No one noticed. But the lens was already recording everything from the very first second. Maya took a slow breath, gentle, controlled like the seasoned doctor. She was a woman who had faced emergency surgeries where seconds meant lives. "My name is Dr. Maya Lawson. I am pregnant. I need to sit down." The word doctor made a few passengers blink, but Karen only squinted with mocking disbelief. "Oh, a doctor. I understand. But titles do not change our policies." In this moment, Karen believed she held absolute power, that she understood who belonged in which seat, that she could judge a person's worth at a glance. She did not know she was staring at the founder's wife. She did not know she had just ignited the biggest crisis in Luminaire's history. She did not know every word, every gesture, every act of aggression was being captured in perfect clarity for millions to see online. She did not know that within hours a man would cross the country in his private jet with a fury strong enough to end her 20-year career. Karen inhaled sharply, her voice turning razor-sharp. "Listen carefully. I have the authority to refuse service to any passenger I believe is causing a disturbance." "A disturbance?" Maya repeated. I only want to go to my seat." Karen did not answer. She tilted her head and looked Maya up and down, a single glance that told Maya this was not about rules or tickets. This was about prejudice, deep-rooted and invisible to the one who carried it. The moment crackled with electricity. The air thickened, as if an unseen camera was zooming in slowly on the two faces. Then Karen delivered the line that froze the entire cabin. "You either sit in economy or I call security. Your choice." Maya looked straight into her eyes, not angry, not afraid, just carrying the quiet exhaustion of someone who had endured countless misjudgments. That tiredness was sharp, almost surgical. "No," Maya said. "I will sit in seat 1A because that is my seat." Karen hesitated for half a second. That calm defiance, unshaken and quiet, infuriated her. People like Karen could not tolerate that kind of calm. It made them feel their power slipping. "Fine," Karen whispered, breath trembling with anger. "You are bringing trouble onto yourself." She stepped closer. 1 step. 2 steps. Only a few centimeters separated them. Liam Brooks stared into his phone screen, heart pounding. He knew what was coming. He had seen videos like this online. He just never expected to witness one in person. And then it happened. The slap came with no warning. No hesitation, no restraint. Karen's hand sliced through the air, fast, sharp, vicious as a blade. The sound cracked through the cabin, a harsh, echoing snap. Time stopped. Maya staggered, clutching her cheek. No one breathed. Karen stared at her eyes, filled with the most dangerous feeling, righteous indignation. But in a small corner of first class, Liam's camera was still recording. Clear, steady, unflinching, capturing everything. And that single moment would shape the entire story. The moment that would bring an airline to its knees. The moment that would turn a veteran flight attendant into the center of a storm. The moment that would make the CEO of Luminaire abandon a billion-dollar meeting so furious his entire team fell silent. Karen Whitfield had slapped the wrong woman. And no one in that cabin knew that this single slap would unleash a battle unlike anything the aviation industry had ever seen. Karen Whitfield stepped back half a pace when she realized Maya Lawson's eyes did not shatter the way she expected. No tears, no shouting, only a silence sharp as a blade, the kind of silence that makes people who are used to wielding power begin to lose their footing. But Maya was trembling slightly. Not from fear. The slap had triggered a tightening in her abdomen, sudden, sharp, deep, dangerous. Liam Brooks jolted when he saw Maya clutch her belly. He immediately adjusted his phone, zooming in on Karen's face, capturing every expression. Karen was still trying to control the situation in the way of someone who had spent a lifetime giving orders without ever being challenged. This passenger became aggressive, unbuckled her seatbelt, and posed a risk Karen announced loudly, deliberately, ensuring the entire cabin heard her. A blatant lie. Everyone had seen that Maya had not even gotten the chance to sit down. But Karen believed in the power of her uniform, believed that as long as her voice was firm enough, people would believe her. It had always worked before. Maya inhaled deeply, trying to steady her breath. "You struck me," she said, her voice hoarse but clear. "I am pregnant." From the back of the cabin, an older woman shot to her feet. I saw everything. She did nothing wrong. Karen spun around, eyes blazing. "Ma'am, please sit down. This is a security matter." But before Karen could continue, the cabin speakers chimed. The voice of Captain Elena Rios came through even and cold as steel. "Crew report to me immediately." A heavy silence crushed the cabin like gravity, doubling in an instant. Karen blanched. Captain Rios was not someone easily manipulated. Chloe Hart, the junior flight attendant, hurried from the galley. She looked at Maya, at the faint smear of red across her cheek, at the belly tightening in pain, and then at Karen with horror. "Dear God, what did you do?" "She is a threat," Karen snapped. "Can you not see that I see that you slapped a pregnant passenger?" Chloe replied, her voice shaking yet firmer than ever. One sentence was enough to make Karen jerk back. At that moment, Maya bent forward, wincing as another wave of pain hit. Chloe immediately dropped to her knees. "Are you bleeding? Where does it hurt? Do you feel dizzy?" My stomach, it keeps tightening." Chloe inhaled sharply, as if making a decision that could cost her entire career. "Captain is ordering a return to the gate. A pregnant passenger is experiencing complications. The cabin speakers came alive again. We are turning back. Prepare for arrival." A ripple of alarm spread through the cabin. Everyone knew what that meant. Turning back to the gate was reserved only for very serious emergencies. Very serious. Karen tried to regain control. "There is no need to return. Liam looked up, his voice crisp and unwavering. "I have video. All of it. Every second." Karen froze, her face draining of color. "You are not allowed to film crew members. That is a federal violation, and striking a pregnant woman is not." Liam shot back instantly. The entire cabin fell silent. Meanwhile, Maya struggled to breathe evenly, the contractions stretching longer, sharper. Tears welled not from the burning on her cheek, but from the fear tightening inside her chest, her baby. Chloe held Maya's hand firmly. "Stay with me. We are almost there." The cabin door opened the moment the plane connected to the jet bridge. 2 paramedics rushed in. One placed a hand on Maya's shoulder. "We are taking you out right now. How long has the pain been happening? Right after she hit me." The paramedic turned and stared straight at Corin. No words, but the judgment in that look was absolute. Karen turned away. For the first time in her entire career, she could not find the shield of authority she normally hid behind. Maya was lifted onto the stretcher. Chloe hurried alongside, pressing a cold pack gently against Maya's cheek. In that brief moment, Maya saw the young woman's eyes, frightened, yet determined. A small flicker of goodness in a cabin thick with tension. "Is she going to be all right?" Chloe asked the paramedic. "We need to check immediately. High stress can trigger dangerous contractions." Maya heard those words and felt her heart collapse inward. She closed her eyes, fighting to keep her breathing steady. As the stretcher rolled past the cabin door, Maya whispered, her voice breaking. "They need to call my husband, Evan Lawson." Chloe froze. A jolt shot through her mind. Evan Lawson. That name was too familiar to ignore. And then she remembered. The tiny logo in the corner of the training videos, the speech during the company's anniversary celebration, the face of the man who founded Luminaire. If Maya was a Lawson, then that man was her husband. Captain Rios stepped out of the cockpit at that exact moment. Chloe turned to her, pale as chalk. "Captain, the passenger who was assaulted, she is Evan Lawson's wife." The captain's expression petrified. In a corner of the cabin, Karen Whitfield finally understood. Her eyes widened, horror blooming like wildfire. What had just happened was no longer a simple passenger incident. It was not a misunderstanding, not an inconvenience, not cabin disruption. She had struck the heart of the very airline she served, and the worst part she knew, this was only the beginning. Maya Lawson lay on the stretcher as it moved down the airport hallway, the cold neon lights gliding across her tense face. Each shift of movement made her abdomen tighten again. Not a sharp pain, but a deep, lingering squeeze, the kind of discomfort that throws a mother's heartbeat off its natural rhythm because she is terrified of losing her child. Chloe's heart ran right behind her, breath uneven. She tried to stay composed, but her hands were trembling violently. She could not forget the moment Karen delivered that slap, could not forget the sound, sharp and metallic, like a blade slicing through the cabin air. And now, watching Maya on that stretcher, Chloe understood this was going far beyond anything she had ever seen in the industry. Inside the temporary medical lounge near the gate, Maya was placed on a mobile bed. The paramedics immediately checked her blood pressure and monitored the baby's heartbeat. The screen flashed, beeping steadily. Maya tried to focus on the rhythm, even as her own pulse raced chaotically. One paramedic spoke softly, but still loud enough for Maya to hear. "She is experiencing stress-induced contractions. We need to take her to the hospital immediately." Maya's heart tightened into a burning knot. The door swung open. A man in a grey suit hurried inside. David Coulson, the Luminaire station manager at the New York terminal, went pale at the sight of her. "Dr. Lawson, I am deeply sorry. We are preparing a private waiting area for you. We will handle your luggage, your travel arrangements, everything." Maya closed her eyes. She did not want apologies. She wanted her baby to be safe. She placed her hand on her belly. "Please call my husband." Chloe stepped forward. "His name is Evan Lawson." "Right, yes." Chloe gripped the edge of her uniform, her suspicion confirmed. David froze when he heard the name. He nearly dropped his clipboard. If he is the Evan Lawson, I think he is." Maya opened her eyes, tired but unmistakably clear. "He is Evan Lawson, the founder of Luminaire." The air in the room vanished. Chloe stood still. David swallowed hard. The paramedics exchanged glances, because now everyone understood one thing. This situation had already gone far beyond a cabin incident. It had become a nuclear explosion at the very center of the airline's power structure. David stammered, I will report directly to headquarters immediately." But Maya caught his wrist, her gaze sharpening for a brief moment between the waves of pain. "No, call Evan first. Only him." David nodded quickly and ran out as if escaping lightning. Chloe stood beside the bed, her eyes glistening. She does not deserve this. Maya gave a faint, fragile smile. No one does. A paramedic began pushing the stretcher out. Maya was transferred into the ambulance, the metal doors shut, sealing off the outside world. In that moment, all she could hear was the steady thump of her baby's heartbeat, a fragile reassurance. The ambulance sirens wailed as it sped away. Meanwhile, in a glass conference room at Luminaire headquarters in San Francisco, Evan Lawson's meeting had reached its decisive moment. Growth charts covered the screen. Investors leaned forward, ready to finalize deals worth hundreds of millions. Evan's phone vibrated. Not a message, a call from Maya. He stared at the screen for a few seconds, long enough for everyone in the room to sense something was wrong. He answered. "Honey, what happened?" Maya's voice cracked into uneven fragments. Evan shot to his feet. His entire expression shifted. The polished CEO vanished, replaced by a man hearing devastating news from halfway across the country. "Did someone hurt you? Are you all right? What about the baby?" Maya struggled to speak. "Evan, she hit me. She who hit you." "The lead flight attendant." Maya's voice trembled. "Karen Whitfield." The moment that name left her lips, Evan's entire body went rigid, frozen in place. His eyes darkened. "Where are you? the medical station. They are taking me to the hospital. Do not say another word. I am coming right now." The room turned to stone. No one dared to breathe. Evan lowered his phone, staring at the silent investors, with an expression so cold the temperature in the room seemed to drop. "The meeting is over. I have an urgent family emergency." One investor tried to speak. "Mr. Lawson, the contract," Evan cut him off instantly, his voice flat and sharp as a blade. "Contracts can be signed again. My wife cannot." He turned to his assistant. "Prep the jet. We depart in 20 minutes. Connect me to human resources and legal immediately. I want the full personnel file of the crew on flight New York 103. All internal reports, cabin camera footage, witness statements, everything." His assistant stammered. "Sir, we need time to—" "There is no time." Evan's voice tightened like a detonator clicking into place. "They laid a hand on my wife and put my child in danger." The room drowned in a cold, suffocating silence. Evan strode toward the door, never looking back. His footsteps echoed across the polished floor like war drums. As he walked, he spoke into his phone voice, low, precise, deadly. "Activate emergency protocol, level 3. The person on the other end hesitated. "But level 3 is for major media crises. They just created the biggest crisis of their lives." A beat of silence. "And I am going to handle it." The elevator doors slid shut. Evan Lawson disappeared inside, already in motion like a bullet fired from the chamber, and the entire Luminaire empire was about to learn what it meant to pay the price. Evan Lawson sat inside his private jet, fastening his seatbelt as the pilot increased thrust, sending the aircraft shooting into the California sky. The moment the wheels lifted off the runway, he reverted to his truest form, a crisis machine operating with a speed and level of destruction no one dared underestimate. Every trace of softness and composed charm from a successful businessman disappeared. What remained was a heavy silence and a fury tightening across his chest like a steel fist. He opened his laptop. The screen lit up, reflecting a face carved from stone. Human resources appeared on the video call. Daniel Price, pale as paper. Legal counsel Jessica Morales with her glasses on and her lips pressed into a tense line. Daniel swallowed. "Sir, we just received the initial report from the crew." "Read it," Evan said, not even glancing at the camera. Daniel drew a breath. "Lead flight attendant Karen Whitfield accuses Dr. Lawson of being disruptive, failing to follow safety instructions, and deliberately standing during taxi. She claims the slap was accidental self-defense." Jessica cut in, her voice sharp, but the video posted by passengers shows the opposite. Absolutely the opposite. This was intentional assault. Evan still did not raise his head. "Send the video." Daniel trembled so badly he tapped the wrong window twice before the file finally opened. The video played, showing Maya standing in the aisle, exhausted but polite, and then Karen lunging forward like a sudden gust and striking her across the face. The sound of the slap cracked through the speakers like a violent explosion. Evan paused the video. He did not blink. He did not react. He did not speak. Yet Daniel and Jessica could both feel the pressure building inside the jet, growing heavier by the second. Evan's silence was far more terrifying than any outburst. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and molten, like flowing steel. "I want all cabin camera footage. Send it the moment you obtain it." Daniel tried to steady his voice. "So first class does have FAA-required security cameras. We will extract the footage within 3 hours. 3 hours is too long. Do it faster." Jessica hurried to speak. We have already deployed a technical team at the New York terminal. They will override the layered encryption to access the recording. I guarantee that before you land, you will have the full data. Continue. Daniel flipped through the documents, his palms damp with sweat. We also have 5 witness statements, confirming that Maya Lawson did nothing wrong, and she has been taken to the hospital. Evan closed his eyes, just for a moment, a compressed beat of pain. Then he opened them again, sharp with a cold, ruthless clarity. Where is Karen Whitfield? Still on the ground, waiting for her debriefing. We have not informed her about Dr. Lawson's identity. Do not tell her. Evan's voice cut across the screen like a blade. I want to look her in the eyes when she realizes who she struck. Daniel nodded, his throat dry. Yes, sir. Evan shut the laptop. No goodbye. The meeting was over. The jet cabin fell silent. Outside, sunlight pierced through the clouds, casting a clean metallic line across his face. He curled his hand into a fist, then released it slowly. A small movement, but inside it was the beginning of a storm. Nothing is more dangerous than a gentle man pushed to his limit. And Evan Lawson was a gentle man until today. At that same moment in the New York terminal, Karen Whitfield sat in the human resources waiting room. A small room, white walls, pale wood table. She rehearsed her statement like someone perfecting a speech. Everything was flawless in her mind. Maya was the troublemaker. She only followed protocol. She was the real victim. She was confident everything would be buried quickly. 20 years as lead flight attendant, no major infraction, no one in the airline would dare touch her impeccable record. She adjusted her collar, fixed her hair, and quietly mocked Maya under her breath. People like her always overreact. She had no idea the video had taken over the internet. No idea hundreds of thousands of comments had erupted. No idea CNN, ABC, Fox, and NBC were running breaking headlines. No idea the hashtag Justice for Maya was sitting at the #1 spot on Twitter. And most crucial of all, she had no idea Evan Lawson's jet was slicing through the sky toward her, powered by a fury nothing could stop. At the hospital, Maya was taken into an emergency ultrasound room. The baby's heartbeat pulsed steadily. Stable, for now. But the doctor warned her she needed full rest. Stress could become a dangerous trigger. Maya nodded, though the real wound was not physical. Not the slap, not the stomach pain. It was the humiliation, a humiliation deep enough to scar a memory for years, like a burn. She stared at the ceiling, wondering if Evan already knew. Then her phone buzzed. A message. I am on my way. Let me handle everything. She closed her eyes. A tear slipped down. Relief, fear, and the certainty that once Evan arrived, no one at Luminaire would escape the storm he carried. The jet began its descent. Evan could see the runway at the New York airport. A message appeared from Jessica. We are ready. Everyone is seated in the conference room. Whitfield knows nothing. Evan placed his phone away. His heartbeat slowed. Steady. Controlled. This was not rage exploding outward. It was silent, sharpened, deliberate, like a verdict already signed before the hearing even began. As the aircraft touched down, Evan Lawson rose from his seat. Today was not just about a wife who had been slapped, or a baby placed at risk. This was about a system that must pay, and he was the one coming to collect. Evan Lawson stepped out of the jet like a shadow, stretched tight by the gravity of the fury contained inside him. No security guards, no entourage, only him, a man whose presence alone made the airport air drop several degrees. Every Luminaire employee stationed in the VIP area recognized him, but none dared approach. They simply stepped aside, bowing their heads slightly, sensing the invisible pressure crushing the atmosphere around him. No one knew exactly what was happening, but they could feel it. Something serious was about to be torn open today. Evan did not slow down. He walked straight ahead, long, decisive steps so cold that even the polished floor beneath him seemed to crack under the weight of his stride. A staff member hurried behind him to lead the way, but kept several cautious paces of distance. "The crew is in conference room number 4, sir," the staff member whispered. "Karen Whitfield?" Evan asked. "Yes. She is waiting for her interview." "Good." Evan said nothing more. Conference room number 4, where Karen sat, was the complete opposite of the storm approaching it. Bright, cold, quiet. Karen Whitfield sat upright, hands clasped neatly on the table, her confidence fully restored. She had rehearsed her statement nearly 20 times, each repetition making her fabricated version of events feel more correct. In her mind, Maya Lawson was simply an overly sensitive passenger, someone who didn't understand procedures, someone demanding unreasonable. And she, with 20 years of experience, had merely followed protocol. She adjusted her collar again. Her expression showed caution, but arrogance still lingered beneath it. The door opened. Daniel Price and Jessica Morales walked in. First, their faces drawn tight. Karen greeted them with a half-pitiable, half-performative expression. "Thank you for arranging this." She began, her voice sugary and false. "I really need the chance to explain." "That passenger." The door opened again. Karen stopped speaking. Evan Lawson entered. No one said a word. No one needed to. The oxygen in the room vanished, leaving behind one terrifying truth. Karen had just realized exactly who the man standing in front of her was. She shot to her feet, the chair slamming against the wall. Mr. Lawson, I did not realize sit," Evan said softly. But that tone could have cut the room in half. Karen sat instantly, whatever arrogance she had evaporating. Evan did not look at her. He pulled out a chair and sat at the head of the table like a judge settling in before delivering a verdict. Daniel opened his laptop, hands shaking. Jessica placed a thick folder in front of Evan. No introductions, no questions, no explanations. The entire room seemed frozen under the static pressure of Evan's presence. Evan spoke first. "Miss Whitfield, this is your only chance to recount what happened. All of it. Precisely. No omissions, no embellishment." Karen swallowed hard. So the passenger in seat 1A became. Evan lifted a single finger. She froze. Evan tilted his head slightly, his eyes sharp as a surgeon's blade. "Do you think I have not watched the video?" Karen blanched. Her lips trembled. You watched it, the passenger recording," Evan said slowly. "And the cabin camera footage." Karen choked on her breath. "The cabin has a camera, it does," Jessica added, her voice icy. "And it captured your slap very clearly." Karen's mouth opened, but no excuse escaped. Evan continued. "Now tell the story, the way you believe it happened." Karen knew she was cornered, yet her survival instincts, the same instincts that helped her escape accountability for multiple colleague complaints in the past, pushed her straight back to her usual lies. I was simply doing my job. She was violating safety rules. She tried to stand up. She became aggressive. So Evan turned his laptop toward her. Pressed play. The slap echoed through the conference room like a gunshot. Karen broke into tears. "Oh my God, I did not mean, I was having a terrible day, Mr. Lawson. Evan closed the laptop. In that instant, Karen understood. Nothing could save her. He looked at her for the first time since entering the room. His eyes held no hatred, no rage, only profound disappointment. You struck a pregnant woman. Karen collapsed onto the table, sobbing. Evan continued, his voice low, yet as sharp as a verdict already signed. Not just that. You struck my wife. Karen jerked her head up as if slapped again. You said what, Maya? Lawson. Evan held her gaze. You struck my wife and put my child at risk. Karen opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Her hands shook uncontrollably. Her breath broke into fragments. Jessica added, voice metallic and merciless, Miss Whitfield. Everything you did has been recorded. You will face immediate termination, an internal investigation, civil liability, and the possibility of criminal charges for assaulting a pregnant woman. Karen crumpled into a chair, hands covering her face, sobbing. Evan no longer looked at her. He stood. True power does not need to raise its voice. It only needs to stand up at the right moment. Daniel asked timidly, "So what would you like us to do next?" Evan looked toward the door as if seeing far beyond the walls of that room. Assemble the entire executive board. Prepare a press conference. No cover-ups, no softening. We will tell the truth. A brief pause. And I want the entire company culture rebuilt. From the ground up. He headed toward the exit, and her Daniel whispered, glancing at Karen, who was collapsing into the table. Evan did not turn around. He spoke one sentence, short, clean and sharp enough to slice stone. She ended her own career the moment she lifted her hand. The rest is for the law to handle. The door closed behind him, and in that moment, Karen Whitfield finally understood that her life had just been destroyed by the same hand she had used to destroy someone else. Evan Lawson left the conference room and headed straight for the hospital, as if the entire world was opening a path for him. The company car was already waiting. The doors closed. The engine roared. He did not speak once during the ride, not because he was calm, but because the fury inside him was compressed so tightly that there was no space left for language. Outside the window, New York smeared past in streaks of color. Inside the car, his phone vibrated non-stop with messages from PR, legal, and the board. Evan did not open a single one. None of it mattered until he knew Maya and the baby were safe. The car screeched to a halt at the entrance of Lenox Hill Hospital. Evan stepped out. Every person in the lobby turned to look at him, not because he was famous, but because he radiated the tense, explosive energy of a husband searching for answers. A nurse stood up immediately. "You are Evan Lawson. My wife, Maya Lawson, was brought in for emergency care. Where is she?" Evan's voice was low and cold, and the nurse instantly pulled up the information. "Sir, she is in the high-risk maternity observation unit. The doctor is, I need to see her now." The nurse nodded and led him down the hallway. Evan's footsteps tightened with each step, as if he was exerting every ounce of restraint not to erupt before reaching her room. The hallway was white, the lights dim, gold distant machines humming. Every detail made his chest pull tighter. The door opened. Maya lay on the hospital bed, her abdomen connected to. Monitors her face, pale, but her eyes open. When she saw him, the exhaustion in her expression softened into something more fragile relief mixed with survival. Evan rushed to her. Maya lifted her hand and touched his cheek. "The baby still has a heartbeat," she whispered, "but the doctor wants to run more tests." Evan wrapped his hand around hers and pressed it against his chest. He did not say, "I am worried." He did not say, "I am angry." He did not have to. His eyes alone made the room colder. The doctor entered. "Mr. Lawson, your wife's condition is stable for now. But the baby has shown stress-induced contractions. We need to keep her under continuous observation." "Is it dangerous?" Evan asked, his voice so deep the doctor paused before answering. "If the emotional stress continues, it could be. But at the moment, the heartbeat is steady." Evan nodded. Maya watched him, seeing the tension coiling behind his eyes like a dark undercurrent. "I am sorry you had to leave the meeting," she said softly. Evan leaned down and rested his forehead against her hand. "No meeting matters more than you." The sentence was quiet, but carried the weight of a vow. He stood upright again, his eyes sharpening. "Maya, I want you to tell me everything. Every detail. Do not leave anything out." Maya recounted the entire ordeal, her voice breaking at moments. How Karen blocked her at the aircraft door. How she said, "You do not belong here." How she tore the boarding pass. How she refused even a cup of water. How she accused her of not following safety protocol. How the slap twisted her head and sent a painful contraction ripping through her abdomen. Evan did not interrupt. He did not react. He did not even breathe heavily. He simply stood there, unmoving like a statue, carved right before a storm. When she finished, Evan asked, "The video. The boy behind me, Liam, he recorded it." Evan nodded. "I have seen it, and I will speak to him. I will also speak to every passenger in that cabin." Maya stared at him. In his eyes, she no longer saw Evan, the gentle man who tied her shoelaces during her 3rd month of pregnancy. Standing before her now was something else, a primal protector, sharpened by the strength of a man who had built an empire from nothing. Maya trembled slightly. "Evan, what are you going to do?" He touched her cheek so gently, it contrasted violently with the storm swirling inside him. "I will not let anyone hurt you ever again." His voice carried the calm certainty of someone who had already made every decision. Maya realized something deeper than anger or pride. Evan was not enraged over status, not furious because his authority had been challenged. His fury was pure, instinctive, absolute. For his wife. For his child. The doctor returned, asking Evan to step outside so Maya could rest. Evan walked into the hallway. The warm lighting cast a colder, darker reflection in his eyes. Chloe Hart stood waiting at a distance. When she saw him, she became so tense she nearly dropped the files in her hands. Mr. Lawson, I need to speak with you." Evan walked toward her, and his presence alone made her heartbeat stutter. "You were the one who helped my wife." "Yes, I did everything I could." "You will be protected," Evan said immediately. "No one will touch you." Chloe's eyes widened, almost tearful with relief. Evan straightened his shoulders, expanding like a commander assessing the battlefield. "Now take me to the reporting room. I want legal HR, and I want every piece of information related to Karen Whitfield on the table before I sit down." Chloe nodded rapidly and hurried ahead to lead the way. Evan followed his steps, heavy, steady, powerful. Every employee in the hallway turned to look. They did not know the details, but they felt something unmistakable. The greatest storm in Luminaire's history had just entered the building. Evan Lawson stepped into the emergency conference room at the JFK executive office, as if the entire space contracted around him. The overhead lights cast a cold sheen across the long glass table, reflecting his silhouette like a warning. Human resources, legal airport operations, everyone was already seated. back straight eyes lowered, as though facing a courtroom with no judge's bench, yet far more weight than any real court. Chloe Hart sat in the corner, gripping a folder so tightly her knuckles had turned white. She trembled, but her eyes steadied when Evan glanced at her, a look carrying the weight of gratitude, protection, and a silent promise that she was not alone. Daniel Price opened his laptop, voice raspy. "Sir, this is the full 22-year service record of Karen Whitfield. Not a single mark, or rather no marks on paper." Evan leaned back slightly. "I want the truth, not paperwork." Jessica Morales stood, placing a thick stack of statements on the table. "We contacted former crew she worked with. Several former flight attendants agreed to speak. They say Karen repeatedly showed discriminatory behavior, abused authority, created hostile environments for younger staff, but always avoided official reporting." Evan closed his eyes for precisely 1 second. It was not anger. It was recognition. Understanding just how much rot had been festering beneath the surface of the system he built. When he opened his eyes again, the look was no longer only for Maya. It was the look of a founder realizing his creation had been poisoned. "Play the cabin camera footage," Evan said. Daniel tapped the screen. The video played. Karen arguing. Karen advancing toward Maya. Karen dropping her voice into a threat. And the slap sharp, forceful, venomous, echoing through the room like a hammer driving into a skull. No one breathed. The next clip showed Liam Brooks's recording. His voice shook, but was clear. "She didn't do anything. She just asked for an extender." Evan pressed both hands onto the table. His voice was low, but every word landed like a rivet hammered into steel. That was not an incident. That was a deliberate assault. And it is a crime. Chloe swallowed hard, and her words, right before she slapped, she played the cabin audio, captured by internal mics. Karen's voice filled the room. "I know who belongs in first class, and who doesn't." The air in the room dropped to the bottom of the ocean. Evan did not speak. He did not change expression. But his fist tightened until every knuckle stood out clearly. Here Jessica added, placing another transcript on the table. "This is from the technical team, the moment right before Liam captured the slap." Karen whispered it quietly, but the cabin mic still caught it. The audio was faint, but unmistakably clear. People like her always think they can talk back. A chill ran down every spine in the room. "She is a bomb that already exploded," Jessica concluded, and she pulled the entire airline into the blast. Evan rose and walked to the window. Outside, Luminaire planes taxied calmly across the tarmac, a peaceful scene so blatantly out of place beside the moral disaster unfolding inside the room. He spoke without turning. How many people stayed silent and allowed her to last 20 years? No one answered. Because the question was not meant to be answered. It was meant to indict. Evan turned back, eyes slicing through Daniel and Jessica. "I want the entire executive board present within 1 hour. I will speak to them myself." Daniel nodded instantly, though his throat tightened. Next, Evan continued. "I want every passenger in the first-class cabin contacted personally. Apologies must be made immediately. No templates, no PR spin," Jessica wrote quickly. "And I want to meet Liam Brooks," Evan said. "Is he here?" Chloe lifted her head. "He is waiting downstairs. I can bring him up." "Bring him in." The door opened several minutes later. Liam entered, young, still shaken, but his eyes brightened when he saw Evan. He swallowed hard. "Oh, are you Evan Lawson?" "I am." Evan stepped forward and shook his hand, firm and solid. "Thank you." His voice was deep, heavy, but warmer than anything uttered today. If it were not for you, my wife might have lost our child, and the truth might have been buried. Liam's eyes reddened with emotion. I just felt like I had to do the right thing. You did what many adults would not have the courage to do, Evan said, placing a hand on Liam's shoulder. You will be protected, and I will personally ensure your life is not harmed by any of this. Daniel and Jessica exchanged glances. They knew this was not politeness. It was a political promise with real force behind it. Evan returned to the head of the table, his voice steady, powerful, and sharpened, like a blade redrawing the battlefield. This is no longer the case of one flight attendant. This is the indictment of an entire system. His gaze swept the room, cold, precise, demanding. And we begin rewriting everything today. The door shut behind Evan as he left the room. Inside, no one moved. Outside in the hallway, Chloe exhaled, as if she had just witnessed a mountain shift. And in that moment, all of Luminaire understood they were not just witnessing a storm. They were witnessing the beginning of a reform no one would escape. Evan Lawson walked into the emergency operations hall of Luminaire's JFK Command Center, as if the entire space tightened around him. The glass walls gleamed, the polished floors reflected back a man carrying enough controlled fury to bend the air itself. Every major decision for the northeastern region was issued from here, but today the atmosphere was different. Thick, heavy, charged like an electric field humming through the room. Employees who saw him stood up immediately, none daring to meet the gaze of a man who had just learned his wife was slapped by someone wearing the uniform of the company he built. His eyes held no fire because fire flares and fades. What Evan brought with him was cold steel, compressed, unyielding, crushing. He walked deeper into the operations wing. David Coulson, the station manager, waited at the door, face pale. Mr. Lawson. I was with Dr. Lawson when she was taken in. Evan lifted a hand. No need to explain. I know you did the right thing. David exhaled shakily, not relieved, but slightly less terrified. How many reports have been filed? Evan asked. At this moment, the captain's report, the secondary flight attendant's report, passenger statements, cabin camera footage, and David's voice cracked. The social media video has passed 12 million views in 4 hours. Evan stopped walking. The number dropped into the silence like a block of steel. 8 million, 12 million Luminaire was not dealing with an incident. They were drowning in a media tsunami. Evan's voice did not shift in the slightest. Connect me with Austin headquarters. David nodded so fast he nearly stumbled. The call opened on the main screen in the operations hall. 3 faces appeared: the chairman of the board, the global PR director, and the chief operating officer. All 3 looked stretched thin, like violin strings pulled to the breaking point. Evan, we just watched the video. This is a catastrophe, the chairman began. No, Evan said, his voice deep and absolute. The catastrophe is not the video. The catastrophe is that it happened. The PR director jumped in, pale. We prepared a statement. We could say the footage is taken out of context, or number 1 word, sharp, final. We do not lie. Evan stood tall, his posture, a blade splitting through the entire control room. We do not sugarcoat. We do not hide. We do not twist the truth. He stared directly into the camera, an expression that cut through the satellite feed. We will accept fault. Publicly. Directly. The entire room held its breath. And we will begin by terminating Karen Whitfield immediately, Evan continued. No additional meetings. No union negotiations. No appeals. direct termination for violent conduct. The chief operating officer hesitated. Evan, the union will have the video. Evan raised his voice by only one level, but it slammed through the room like a shock wave. They can choose to defend her or choose to defend 12 million people watching that slap. No one argued again. Evan continued, his voice lower, now sharper than a surgical blade. I will hold the press conference in 2 hours. I will stand in front of the cameras. Personally. And I will speak the full truth. The PR director nearly choked. You want to lead the press conference yourself? Yes. Mr. Lawson, that is extremely risky. In a crisis, the CEO never steps out. My wife was slapped on my aircraft. Evan said, his voice quiet but heavy as a verdict. If I hide behind a PR desk, I do not deserve to be CEO. Silence swallowed every corner of the room. The door to the operations hall opened, but no one entered. Everyone simply stared. Maya Lawson was standing at the entrance, leaning lightly on the doorway. She wore a hospital coat, pale but steady on her feet. The doctor had insisted she remain in bed, but Maya had signed a temporary release. Evan rushed to her. Maya, you should not be out of bed. I want to talk about this. Her voice was weak, but her gaze carried the strength of someone who had saved children's lives. Not for me, but for the others, for the people who have been treated like I was. Evan fell silent. Maya stepped closer. You are going to do it, aren't you? I am going to change everything Evan said. Not for PR, not for the press. Because it must be done. Maya took his hand. Then let the change begin with the truth. He nodded. That moment, the two of them standing in the center of the operations hall at the heart of the storm, was the moment every employee in the room realized this was not a CEO protecting a corporation. This was a husband protecting his family, a man defending what was right, a human being defending truth. The communications team hurried in, setting up equipment, lights, cameras, microphones, the podium. No one spoke. They did not need to. Evan stood in the middle of the room adjusting his tie. Not for appearance, but because he was preparing to walk into the most public battle of his life. The PR director approached softly. Mr. Lawson, would you like to read through the prepared draft? Evan stared straight ahead. No. I will speak with the voice of a man who just watched the truth get betrayed. The lights switched on. The live stream feed activated. Millions were waiting. The entire aviation industry was watching. The country was holding its breath. Evan Lawson stepped up to the podium, and the air in the room cracked open, not from noise, but from absolute silence. A rising tide began to swell, a tide that would drown an entire old era of luminaire. The stage lights hit Evan Lawson head-on, sharpening every cold angle of his face. Behind the cameras, a forest of microphones and news logos waited like predators ready to pounce. But today the prey was not him. It was the toxic silence that had smothered the airline industry for far too long. Evan placed both hands on the podium. No trembling. No hesitation. No script. He looked straight into the rows of cameras, as if he were looking directly into every viewer's eyes. This afternoon he began, voice deep, steady, resonant. A pregnant passenger was assaulted in the first-class cabin of Luminaire Airlines. The entire room stopped breathing. No diversion, no softening, no excuses. Evan cut straight through to the truth. A member of our staff, he continued, denied her water when she felt unwell, insulted her, humiliated her, acted on prejudice, and finally struck her. Camera shutters exploded like hail. Evan did not blink. That slap was unacceptable, morally, professionally, legally. He bowed his head for a single second, a silence that pierced the heart of an entire industry. "I am sorry." Many CEOs say those words as tools. Evan said them like a vow. "I apologize to my wife, Dr. Maya Lawson, for failing to protect her in a space that should have been the safest. I apologize to our unborn child for allowing someone else's hatred to harm their mother. And I apologize to all Luminaire passengers for allowing an employee with prejudice to serve you for 20 years. The press room shook as if an invisible force had blasted through it. Evan held his gaze on the cameras, his breathing steady, his voice measured, every sentence lifting the lid off a rising storm. Karen Whitfield has been terminated immediately. Several reporters surged forward as if jolted, but Evan raised a hand. Not threatening, but carrying the weight of raw authority. The room froze. But termination is not enough. He pressed each word like pressing a seal into stone. Luminaire will fully cooperate with prosecutors. We support full criminal charges. Every piece of evidence, cabin footage, witness statements, social media video will be submitted. Suddenly, Evan stepped away from the podium. No barrier, no buffer. Just him facing the world directly. To make the truth clear, I will say this. I do not need to protect Luminaire's reputation more than the safety of our passengers. I do not need to protect a brand more than human dignity. And I will not protect any individual who harms someone vulnerable. A reporter stood, voice trembling. "Mr. Lawson, are you only taking this stance because the victim is your wife?" Evan turned and stared at him, his eyes sharp as a freshly honed blade. If the victim were not my wife, she would deserve the exact same protection. Then he spoke slowly, deliberately, each word anchoring itself into the floor. "That slap is not horrifying because it landed on my wife. It is horrifying because it landed on a pregnant woman. A black woman. A paying passenger. A human being." The room fell completely still. No pen moved, no camera dared shift. Evan looked toward the front row, where Maya Lawson sat with her hand on her belly. The spotlight caught her face, pale, exhausted, but calm, holding a quiet strength. Evan continued. "Beginning today, Luminaire will launch the most comprehensive reform in our history." He lifted a hand. Jessica Morales stepped forward and placed a thick document on the podium. "This is our new program, the Lawson Initiative. We will retrain all staff on unconscious bias de-escalation skills and dignity-first service. We will overhaul our employee evaluation system to ensure people like Karen cannot hide in the shadows one day longer. And we will establish a confidential hotline for staff to report abuse of authority without fear of retaliation." A reporter shouted, "Is this an apology or a declaration of war?" Evan turned, eyes flashing like a bolt of lightning. Both. A wave of gasps rolled through the room. Then he concluded, "We cannot erase what happened, but we can guarantee it will never happen again." Evan stepped back from the podium without looking around, without waiting for questions. The press conference ended under a barrage of camera shutters, firing like a storm of bullets. At the back of the room, Maya rose as Evan approached. He reached her and placed a hand on her shoulder, gentle, almost tender, shockingly at odds with the thunderous power he had wielded moments before. "Are you all right?" he asked. "Shouldn't I be asking you?" Maya whispered, eyes sharp despite her exhaustion. "You just burned down the sky." Evan allowed the first true smile of the day. "For you, and for everyone like you." Maya pressed her cheek against his hand. "Then keep going. Do not stop." Evan nodded, once firm as a hammer driving a stake. Behind them, the media team was already rushing to send the footage across the world. But none of them knew the press conference was only the beginning. The real confrontation awaited in the executive command floor, where Evan would summon the entire leadership to face the truth they had ignored for 20 years. The storm had not passed. It had only begun to center itself. The leadership meeting of Luminaire took place inside the most sealed room of the executive building, a room normally reserved for discussions on mergers, new routes, billion-dollar strategies. But today it served a different purpose. A courtroom. Evan Lawson stood at the head of the table. He did not sit. He did not need to. He paced slowly like a blade, searching for the exact point to cut. Each step thudded against the wooden floor, the heavy rhythm of a fury that was controlled, measured, and lethal. The entire leadership team sat rigid faces, drained. No one dared cough. No one dared adjust their glasses. No one dared exchange glances. Evan stopped in front of the large screen behind him. "If any of you haven't seen it," he said, "I will play it again." He pressed a button. The footage of Karen Whitfield slapping Maya Lawson appeared. The crack of the slap, sharp and violent, ricocheted through the room. A few female executives covered their mouths. A male director clenched his fists until the veins rose. But Evan was not searching for outrage. He was searching for comprehension. The screen went black. Silence. No one dared speak. Evan turned his eyes colder than steel pins. This is not the failure of one person. This is the failure of a system you oversee. An older executive cleared his throat. "Evan, we all agree this is extremely serious," but Evan cut him off instantly. "There is no but." The man sat down as if struck. How many warnings about Karen went unfiled? How many junior attendants requested transfers because she bullied them? How many customers complained about rude behavior, but were dismissed as insufficient evidence? No one answered. Evan turned to Jessica and Daniel. How many? Daniel inhaled shakily. 14 informal complaints. 7 cases blocked at management level. 3 attendants resigned due to psychological pressure. Jessica added, voice like ice, and 2 passengers reported racial bias. Both reports were removed from the internal system within hours. A young director tried to defend himself. Sometimes frontline staff exaggerate. Evan turned sharply, pinning him with a gaze so sharp the air itself seemed to thin. "Do you think that slap was an exaggeration?" The director froze. "Do you think a pregnant woman experiencing stress-induced contractions is trivial?" He lowered his head, face drained of color. Evan moved to the table and planted both hands on the long wooden surface. "I did not build Luminaire to become a place where procedures are worshipped and humanity is crushed." The room shifted with unease. They knew this was not reprimand. This was restructuring. Evan straightened. "From this moment forward, we will do the following." He did not wait. Each point landed like a hammer on metal. First, all mid-level managers will be reviewed. Anyone involved in suppressing complaints about Karen will be suspended immediately. Second, every cabin crew member will have the right to report anonymously directly to the CEO's office. Third, all first-class cabin cameras will be upgraded with full audio recording and permanent storage. Fourth, the entire employee evaluation system will be rebuilt. The current one has failed. Fifth, every employee from flight attendants to directors will undergo a new training program on bias and human dignity. And finally, Luminaire will publish a full transparency report on this entire investigation. No filters, no excuses. One director whispered, "Evan, the old system will be completely dismantled." "Correct," Evan replied. "And we will build a better one, He stopped in the center of the room. Maya Lawson is not the first person who has been hurt, but she will be the last. The sentence landed like a verdict. Before anyone could breathe, the doors burst open. David Coulson rushed in tense. Mr. Lawson, the prosecutor's office wants to speak. They are requesting full investigative files within 48 hours. You will have them within 12, Evan said. David nodded and hurried out. Evan turned back to the leadership team, his voice dropping no longer angry, but carrying the absolute resolve of a man rebuilding an empire with his bare hands. I will not let Luminaire die because of one slap. I will let it live by how we rise from it. No one argued. No one doubted. The meeting ended as Evan walked out, his shadow stretching down the hallway like a weight of authority. And everyone understood tomorrow Luminaire would not resemble yesterday. Not just in policy, not just in procedure. Luminaire was changing its soul. This story reveals a truth that every professional ethics expert must acknowledge: power has never lived in uniforms, titles, or procedures. It lives in how we treat the human being standing in front of us. A single slap does not only harm a pregnant woman, it exposes the fractures running through an entire system. And sometimes the darkest moment forces an organization to confront its own nature, so it can become more transparent, more humane, and ultimately stronger. If you believe stories like this need to be told to help change society, please like and subscribe so we can continue bringing you perspectives that are honest and cut to the core. And before you go, leave one simple comment. Stand strong